steps, the light reactions and the dark reactions. Well, the light reactions, the one that require light, use chlorophyll, the green stuff in plants. And chlorophyll molecule looks like this. It's got 4 little pinchers that hold a magnesium atom in the middle and kind of stretch it so that a couple of the electrons of the magnesium atom are kind of loosely held, easy to knock loose. And so chlorophyll is essential to get this process started. So here I'll just diagram chlorophyll as a circle with these loose electrons around the outside, stretched by the chlorophyll molecule. Well, now, it can't be just any light, but red light or blue light hitting these electrons will knock them to a higher energy level. Now, you can do this. You can take leaves, for instance, and grind them up, in a mortar and pestle or anything else until you just get green juice. Put it in a test tube, take it in a dark room, and shine light on it, and it'll glow red. Well, shine light on it and then turn the light off, and the chlorophyll will glow red. And so when you shine light on the chlorophyll, the electrons are knocked to a higher energy level, and when you turn the light out, the electrons return to their lower energy level and give off red light as they do so. And so chlorophyll by itself would just be a cheap magician's trick. And so if all chlorophyll could do was, absorb light energy and glow red, we'd all starve to death. You wouldn't get any sugar out of that. And so you want to take this energy and siphon it off into something productive. You don't want it just to glow red. You want it to make some energy that you can use later to make sugar. So the first step in photosynthesis is not making the sugar, it's making the chemical energy you're going to use to make the sugar. So you use the radiant energy of the sun to make electrical energy. And so the flow of electrons is an electric current. And like I say, really it actually builds up some current, and flows out through a little tube. But here I'll just pass it along. There's a series of electron carriers called cytochromes, just means colored cell stuff. But they're arranged so one of them in order, so each one has a greater attraction for electrons. So the electrons keep flowing in this way until they get back to chlorophyll, without its electrons, has the greatest attraction of all. And so the electrons get back to the chlorophyll where they started. But they've been siphoned off into a little electric current like this. And of course, grocery store doors and things work like that. You can shine light on something, stimulate an electric current. If you put your hand in it, stops the electric current, the door opens, things like that. And so this is pretty ordinary chemistry, using light energy to make an electric circuit. But that electric circuit is the fat molecules, which, by the way, have lots of beneficial roles to play in living things. You can't have too many, but they have lots of beneficial roles otherwise. They're electrical insulators, so they keep these electrons from straying out all over the place and funnel them along a direct path, which is what? Not what you'd expect from evolution, time, chance. How can you put an electric circuit together by taking pieces of copper wire and shaking them around in a bag until they all line up in an order with one end plugged in? Or the other end, it's not going to work. And so they flow across in an enzyme system that in effect pushes the ADP and the phosphate together to make ATP. And then there's some NAD, although I got one little wrinkle. In photosynthesis, it's NADP, nicotine, amide, adenine, dinucleotide, phosphate. And a little extra phosphates off to the side, but it's just a tag that cells use to know. They use the P form to make reactions that go uphill, and without the P for reactions that go downhill. So cells are very careful, not exactly like time and chance. Well, they'll take the NAD, strips the hydrogens away from water and releases oxygen. Now, is that actually supernatural? Using an electric current to split water? Could that ever happen? Is that just believing in miracles? No. In fact, that's one of the reasons I married my wife. Okay. So my wife and I met in chemistry class in high school. And the chemistry's been right now for 46 years. And one of our experiments was to electrolyze water. Some of you have done this. You can just have water and you run cables from a battery into the water. Usually a little salt or acid in it, and with a couple test tubes, one over the plus end, one over the wire with the minus end, and the hydrogen bubbles off at one end and the oxygen bubbles off at the other end. And of course, since it's H2O, you get twice as much hydrogen as oxygen. But pretty soon, if you let this go, electric current splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen is just ordinary high school chemistry. And now you got a tube of hydrogen, you got a tube of oxygen. And this is what Mary and I did for open house and parent night. We'd make the hydrogen and oxygen, and then you take these tubes and open them together in front of a flame, and poof, it'd make a little explosion sound as the hydrogen and oxygen got back together to form water that coated the sides of the test tube. Fantastic. How could I turn down a woman that could do something like that? See, the sparks have been flying ever since. Amazing, okay? So this is pretty ordinary chemistry, but this time the hydrogen, the oxygen gets released, but the hydrogen gets captured. It doesn't get released as hydrogen gas, it gets grabbed by NADP. Okay, and that's what's used to make sugar. Okay, and so here's how, let's see, sugar is made. Actually, Brian's going to reduce my salary here if he sees, I guess this isn't supposed to be all marked up yet. I was going to mark that up as I went along. I don't know whether I can unmark it now. I'll just leave it like this. But in the light reactions, essentially 12 molecules of water are used to produce 6 molecules of oxygen. All the oxygen from photosynthesis comes from water, not from the carbon dioxide. The hydrogens are grabbed by NADP to make NADPH2. And then the 6 molecules of carbon dioxide use the hydrogens carried to it by NADPH2 to make sugar, and that also requires some ATP energy produced by the light reactions. All right, well, if you're going to convert carbon dioxide into sugar, how are you going to do it? Okay, well, guess what? Complex prerequisites again. And so the first step in making sugar is to combine carbon dioxide. You want to make a 6 carbon